23XI announced that it will not be appealing the race manipulation penalties that NASCAR handed out to it following the race at Martinsville Speedway on Sunday. I rolled this up over at stockcarreport.com. You can find the link in the description below. But NASCAR penalized Bubba Wallace alongside Ross Chastain and Austin Dillon, as well as 23XI Racing crew chief number 23, the crew chief of the number 23 team, and team executive Dave Rogers. In a blog post, the sanctioning body said this: after an investigation of the on-track data and team scanners from the final laps of Sunday's round of 8 elimination race, NASCAR determined the actions of those involved violated sections 4.4 B&D NASCAR member conduct of the rulebook, which include race manipulation and actions detrimental to stock car racing. Then shared that Chastain, Dillon, and Wallace were each hit with a loss of 50 driver points and a $100,000 fine. In addition, NASCAR also fined the owners of each team $100,000 and deducted 50 owner points each. NASCAR added that crew chiefs Phil Surgeon, Justin Alexander, and Booty Barker, along with their respective spotters, Brandon McReynolds, Brandon Benesch, and Freddie Kraft, were all suspended for the 2024 season finale at Phoenix Raceway. Additionally, team executives Tony Lunders, Keith Rodden, and Dave Rogers were also suspended for the 2024 finale at Phoenix. So 23XI posted this on social media earlier today, announcing that they would not be appealing the penalty. And it says here, after internal deliberations, 23XI has decided not to appeal NASCAR's decision to penalize the number 23 team. We disagree with the penalty ruling and strongly believe we did not break any rules at Martinsville. It is our conclusion that it is in our best interests and those of our team members, partners, and fans to fully devote our personnel and resources this week toward the championship and not an appeal. So the idea that they did not break any rules is just utterly ridiculous. It was so obvious that Bubba Wallace was tanking on the last couple of laps so Christopher Bell could pass him and ensure that he would lock himself into the championship 4. And obviously that was in response to what Chevy was doing with Ross Chastain and Austin Dillon, forming a blockade behind William Byron, refusing to pass him and refusing to allow anyone else to pass him, including Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski, who had formed a train behind the blockade formed by Ross Chastain and Austin Dillon. So they were clearly responding to what Chevy was doing, but it was very obvious to anyone who was watching that Bubba Wallace tanked on the last couple of laps, so Christopher Bell could indeed pass him. He was the only car on a lap down that was ahead of Christopher Bell where he could gain a position, and he only needed to gain one spot in order to be in a points tie with William Byron, and he had the tiebreaker given the fact that he finished second at Vegas. So this idea that 23XI would deny any wrongdoing is not surprising, because Denny Hamlin denied that Toyota Racing instructed 23XI to help Joe Gibbs Racing during his podcast Actions Detrimental earlier this week. This is kind of part of what he said. He said Toyota Racing never, not once this week, told 23XI to do anything for JGR. They were not involved whatsoever. I don't think I've ever been part of a conversation saying, if this happens, then you have to do this. They've never said that as a manufacturer. Even on super speedways, they've left it up to the teams to just kind of, you guys figure this out. We're going to provide you. We hope you work together, but that's it. There's never been any rules that Toyota has laid out to say, this is what we want you to do ever. So obviously he's saying Toyota never provided any instructions, but that doesn't mean that the teams didn't coordinate with each other to do that. He leaves that door very wide open, but I think it was pretty clear that he was implying that they weren't really involved in race manipulation when he was providing this answer. But who's he kidding? I mean, anyone who watched that race clearly saw Bubba Wallace literally fade on the last couple of laps. I think he was like running almost like a half a second slower than everyone else. Completely tanked that car so Christopher Bell could pass him. And then it all went to pot when Christopher Bell did pass him, and then he got up in the rubble there and completely lost control of the car, hit the wall, and then had to kind of Ross Chastain it around the corner. And then NASCAR decided to penalize him for that, put him to the tail end of all of the cars one lap down, which put him in like 22nd position. And that allowed William Byron to advance. I think the whole thing is just utterly ridiculous. I think the fine should have been way tougher. And I think William Byron and Christopher Bell also should have been penalized, as well as their teams, because they were clearly the ones who were benefiting from the race manipulation that was happening with Ross Chastain, Austin Dillon, and Bubba Wallace here. And so I think it's really called into question the integrity of the sport. There obviously have been people pointing out that the NASCAR is more like WWE now, like pro wrestling than ever before. And I definitely feel like this clearly lends to that narrative and really calls into question the legitimacy of the sanctioning body and the sport in general. So we'll see what happens moving forward. It looks like NASCAR is going to try and put this behind them, but I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon. This is a massive black mark on the sport. And I do think that it's smart here for 2311 to kind of just take the penalty and move on, because I do think NASCAR should have been much harsher in the penalties that they gave, because what we saw at Martinsville was completely and utterly unacceptable. But let me know what you guys make of 2311 deciding not to appeal the penalty that NASCAR doled out to it for race manipulation. Let me know in the comments below.